Commander Taehyun Kim stepped off his ship onto Sirius Station, his legs still adjusting to solid ground after 10 years in deep space. The station's artificial gravity felt strange after so long on the Guardian, his home among the stars. He stretched his neck, feeling the weight of responsibility ease slightly now that his crew was safely docked for some well-deserved shore leave. "Commander Kim, your presence is requested at the diplomatic reception tonight," his communications officer informed him. "The Admiral insists." Taehyun sighed. After a decade charting unexplored sectors, the last thing he wanted was to make small talk with officials in stiff uniforms. But orders were orders. "Tell the Admiral I'll be there," he replied, heading to his temporary quarters to change. The reception hall gleamed with polished surfaces and soft lighting, designed to accommodate the various visual sensitivities of the dozen alien species present. Taehyun nursed a drink in the corner, exchanging obligatory pleasantries when approached, but mainly watching the diverse gathering of galactic representatives. That's when he noticed her. Among the delegates stood a being unlike any he'd seen before. Her skin shimmered with an inner light that seemed to pulse gently, like the surface of a calm ocean under moonlight. Blue and violet hues danced across her features as she moved. But strangest of all was the way she watched him, directly, intentionally, with none of the casual disinterest of the other dignitaries. Their eyes met across the room. Hers were large, pupilless orbs of deep indigo, beautiful, alien, and yet somehow familiar. Taehyun felt an unexpected tug of recognition that made no sense. He had never encountered her species in his travels. Throughout the evening, he kept finding himself looking for her in the crowd, and each time she was already watching him. Finally, as the reception began winding down, he saw her slip through a side door that led to one of the station's observation decks. Curious beyond reason, Taehyun followed. The observation deck was empty except for her, standing before the massive viewport. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, and Sirius itself dominated the view, its bright light illuminating her shimmering skin. "I wondered if you would follow," she said without turning. Her voice was melodic, with an accent he couldn't place. "Do I know you?" Taehyun asked, approaching cautiously. She turned then and smiled. The expression was so human on her alien face that it startled him. "Do you remember me, Taehyun? I lived next door to you in Nebraska," she said softly. "I'm Ju." Taehyun froze, his drink nearly slipping from his fingers. "That's impossible." Ju. The name triggered an avalanche of memories. A girl with dark hair and a mischievous smile. Summer days climbing trees in his backyard. Whispered conversations about the stars at night. His best friend throughout childhood who had vanished without a trace the summer they turned 13. "You disappeared," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Your family moved away overnight. No goodbye, no forwarding address." "Not exactly," she replied, taking a step closer. In the starlight, her skin rippled with colors that seemed to reflect her emotions. "My family didn't move away. We were recalled." Taehyun's mind struggled to make sense of her words. "Recalled? You're saying? What exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying I wasn't human, Taehyun. Not then, not now." She gestured to her current form. "This is closer to my true appearance. What you knew in Nebraska was a carefully crafted disguise." His childhood memories collided with the reality before him. Ju had always been different, unusually smart, asking strange questions about human behavior, sometimes using oddly formal language. But he'd attributed that to her being raised by academic parents, as she claimed. You were an alien child, living on Earth. The concept seemed absurd, yet here she stood. She smiled again. "Not a child. I was already 93 years old when we met. My people aged differently. I was part of a research team, a covert observation mission studying human culture. My role was to integrate and report on human development patterns, particularly childhood socialization." Taehyun found himself backing up until he hit the railing. "You were studying us." like lab rats. Juwoo's colors darkened. No, like a civilization with enormous potential. We've been watching Earth for centuries. And our friendship, was that just research too? The hurt in his voice surprised even him. Her colors shifted to a soft, sad blue. That was my mistake. We were supposed to maintain distance, observe without attachment. But you, she paused. You were kind to me. Fascinating. Different from the patterns I'd been taught to expect. I broke protocol by becoming genuinely close to you. Taehyun remembered the day they'd met. He'd found her sitting alone at recess, watching the other children play with analytical eyes. He'd simply asked if she wanted to play kickball. When my superiors discovered the true nature of our friendship, they pulled me out immediately. That's why we left without warning. Her colors swirled with regret. I argued to at least say goodbye, but they refused. Contact was strictly forbidden. Taehyun's mind raced with questions. Why show yourself now, after all these years? Because times have changed. After first contact and Earth joining the Galactic Council, the secrecy around our previous observations is being lifted. She gestured around them. And when I learned you were docking at Sirius Station, that you had become a space explorer yourself, I requested this diplomatic assignment. You've been tracking my career, he asked. I never stopped wondering about you, Taehyun. Her admission hung in the space between them. Taehyun stared at her, this alien being with the soul of his childhood best friend. The person who had sparked his fascination with the stars in the first place, he now realized. How many nights had they spent in his backyard, with Juwoo pointing out constellations and telling stories about what might exist beyond them. Stories that, he now understood, weren't imaginary at all. I don't know what to say, he finally admitted. Finding out my childhood best friend was an alien researcher is a lot to process. I understand, she said, but I wanted you to know the truth. And perhaps, her colors shifted to a hopeful purple. Perhaps we could begin again, this time with honesty between us. As they stood there beneath the stars that had once seemed so distant and mysterious to a boy from Nebraska, Taehyun felt his world shift on its axis once more. The universe had just become both stranger and more familiar all at once. Taehyun stood silently at the viewport, watching the distant stars as he tried to process Juwoo's revelation, his childhood friend, an alien researcher, his mind filled with questions about what else might have been hidden from him. Your people have a name, he finally asked. We are called the Ceridians, Juwoo said, moving to stand beside him. Her skin rippled with gentle blue waves. My homeworld orbits a star you can't see from Earth. And you've been studying humans. For how long? My people, the Ceridians, have studied humanity for centuries, Juwoo explained. She touched the viewport glass, tracing the outline of a distant star. We were there when humans first crafted tools, when they built great stone monuments, when they learned to split the atom. Why? Taehyun asked, turning to face her directly. What makes humans so interesting? Juwoo's skin flashed with spots of gold. Amusement, he guessed. Your adaptability, your creativity, your resilience. Most species follow predictable development paths, but humans, you constantly surprise us. Taehyun considered this, and becoming my friend. Was that part of your research? The colors across Juwoo's body darkened. No, that was my mistake. I broke our protocols by becoming your friend. They recalled me immediately when discovered. A mistake. The word stung more than he expected. Not the friendship itself, she clarified quickly. The protocol breach. We were supposed to observe without influencing, without emotional attachment. Her voice softened. But I couldn't help it. You showed me kindness when you found me alone that day. You included me without question. I'd studied human children for years, but you were different. Different how? Most children are naturally suspicious of outsiders. You weren't. You saw someone alone and decided to change that. Her skin rippled with warm colors. I was supposed to be studying you, but I found myself looking forward to our time together. Taeyeon remembered those days, climbing trees, building forts, sharing secrets, or at least he had shared secrets. So when they found out we were actual friends, they pulled me out immediately. I was reprimanded, reassigned. A ripple of dark purple moved across her form. I argued to say goodbye. I even cried, something Ceridians rarely do. But they refused. What happened after you left? I spent decades working in deep space observation posts, far from Earth. It was considered punishment. Her colors shifted again. But I never regretted our friendship, Taeyeon. It changed me. I became an advocate for open contact with humans, arguing that your species was ready to join the wider galactic community. Before Taeyeon could respond, a sharp alarm blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights began flashing in the corridor beyond the observation deck. "Attention all personnel," a voice announced over the station-wide communication system. "We have received a distress signal from Proxima Colony. The settlement is under attack. All military personnel report to command immediately." Taeyeon straightened instinctively. Proxima Colony was one of humanity's first extrasolar settlements, home to nearly 5,000 people. "I must return to my ship," Taeyeon said, already moving toward the door. Whatever personal revelations they were sharing would have to wait. Jiwoo caught his arm before he could leave. "Wait, who's attacking the colony?" "I don't know yet. Could be pirates, could be territorial disputes. There are several species who claimed that system before we arrived." Her skin pulsed with rapid flashes of red and amber. "Or it could be the Vorzak. They've been pushing into this sector for months." "The who?" "A predatory species from the galactic rim. They don't establish diplomatic relations. They simply take what they want." Her expression grew serious. "If it's them, your colony is in grave danger." Taeyeon hesitated. "How do you know about this species?" "We've never encountered them." "Because we have." Jiwoo's skin settled into a determined blue. "As ambassador of Ceridia, I offer my people's help." She placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and strange against his skin. "Perhaps our childhood connection can become something more, an alliance." The offer startled him. Earth had struggled to secure meaningful alliances since joining the galactic community. Most established species viewed humans as newcomers, barely worth serious diplomatic consideration. "You have that authority?" he asked. "I requested this diplomatic post specifically," she said, "not just to see you again, but because I've been pushing for closer ties with Earth. My government has finally begun to listen." Another announcement blared through the station. "Commander Kim, report to Docking Bay 3 immediately." Taeyeon glanced at the door, then back at Jiwoo. "I have to go." "Take me with you," she said firmly. "My ship is faster than yours, and I have data on the Vorzak that could save lives." He hesitated only briefly. "Follow me." They rushed through the corridors of the station, emergency lights painting everything in shades of red. Station personnel moved with purpose, some looking frightened, others determined. When they reached the command center, Admiral Chen looked up from a holographic display, his face grim. He frowned when he saw Jiwoo. "Commander Kim, we don't have time for social calls. Proxima Colony is under attack by an unknown force. 3 ships of unfamiliar design. They've already destroyed the orbital defenses." "Sir, this is Ambassador Jiwoo of the Ceridian delegation. She believes she can identify the attackers." The Admiral looked skeptical, but gestured to the display. "Be my guest." Jiwoo stepped forward, studying the grainy images captured by the colony's failing satellite network. Her skin darkened to a deep indigo. "Vorzak warships, Class 3 destroyers. You know these aggressors?" the Admiral asked. "Yes, they attacked several Ceridian outposts last year. They're methodical and ruthless. They'll destroy the colony's infrastructure and enslave any survivors." The Admiral's expression hardened. "We're dispatching a response fleet, but they're 8 hours out at best." "Too late," Jiwoo said, "but my ship can be there in 3. and I'm authorized to offer Ceridian assistance. The Admiral looked between Juwu and Taehyun, clearly weighing his options. Commander Kim, your Guardian is the only combat-ready vessel currently docked. Can you be ready to launch in 30 minutes? Yes, sir. Then you'll escort the ambassador's ship, assess the situation, provide any assistance possible, and hold position until reinforcements arrive. Taehyun nodded, already calculating what they would need. As they left the command center, he turned to Juwu. You didn't come here just to reminisce about old times, did you? A faint smile crossed her alien features. Let's just say I hoped our reunion might be professionally productive, as well as personally meaningful. As they hurried toward the docking bays, Taehyun realized that his childhood friendship with a disguised alien might become the foundation for humanity's most important interstellar alliance. The universe, it seemed, had a strange sense of irony, and somewhere in the back of his mind, he remembered two children sitting on a Nebraska hillside, watching the stars and imagining adventures among them. They had no idea how prophetic those dreams would become. Taehyun stood on the bridge of the Guardian, watching as his ship exited the jump point near Proxima Colony. Beside him, Juwu's Ceridian vessel, sleek and organic-looking compared to the angular human design, emerged alongside them. The view screen showed the colony planet ahead, a blue-green orb that should have been peaceful. Instead, the orbital space was littered with debris, and three large, dark ships hovered in attack formation. Scan complete, Commander, his tactical officer reported. Those are definitely the same ship design that hit Epsilon Station last month. The attackers are calling themselves the Nexus. Taehyun frowned. Earth forces had encountered these mysterious attackers twice before, with devastating losses both times. Life signs on the colony. Yes, sir. Approximately 4,000 survivors concentrated in the main settlement's underground shelters. The Nexus have landed ground forces in the agricultural sector. They're harvesting. Juwu's voice came through the communication channel. Her image appeared on a side screen, the colors of her skin now a focused, intense blue. The Nexus always secure food supplies first. You seem to know a lot about their tactics, Taehyun observed. Unfortunately, yes. Juwu's expression darkened. We should discuss this further, but not on an open channel. Permission to come aboard your vessel. 20 minutes later, Taehyun had assembled his senior officers in the Guardian strategy room. Juwu stood before them, her skin occasionally rippling with colors as she spoke. The attackers you call the Nexus have been known to my people for over 800 years, she explained, activating a holographic display with data from her ship. They emerge from unexplored space every few centuries, attack systematically, then disappear again. A nomadic species? Asked Lieutenant Park, the science officer. Not exactly. Juwu's skin darkened. They're more like locusts. They strip resources, take slaves for labor, then move on when an area can no longer sustain them. Taehyun studied the tactical display showing the Nexus ship's positions. Earth Command knows almost nothing about them. We've lost 2 outposts already, with no survivors left to tell what happened. They nearly eliminated my species centuries ago, Juwu revealed, her voice tight with old pain. The Ceridians were once spread across 12 star systems. After the Nexus came through, only our homeworld remained. We've been rebuilding in secret ever since. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How did you survive when they attacked your worlds? Taehyun finally asked. A combination of luck and sacrifice, Juwu replied. Our ancestors managed to mask our homeworld's energy signature while sacrificing the outer colonies to buy time. It was costly. Her skin rippled with dark, mournful colors. We've spent centuries developing defenses should they ever return. Lieutenant Min, the tactical officer, leaned forward. And you're willing to share these defenses with us? Yes, Juwu said simply. The Nexus are a threat to all civilized species. And besides, she added, with a quick glance at Taehyun, I have personal reasons for wanting to protect Earth and its colonies. Tae-hyun nodded, then turned to his crew. Let's focus on immediate action. The colony has maybe 48 hours before the Nexus finish their ground operations and begin taking civilians. Ideas. A direct assault would be suicide, Lieutenant Min said, studying the specifications of the Nexus ships. Their weapons outclass ours by at least 2 generations. And reinforcements are still 7 hours out, added Commander Seo, Tae-hyun's first officer. We don't need to defeat them, Ju-woo interjected. We just need to make this colony too costly for them to take. Her fingers danced across the display, highlighting certain parts of the Nexus ships. These vessels have specific vulnerabilities. Their sensor arrays can be overloaded by targeted electromagnetic pulses. Tae-hyun studied the highlighted sections. We could modify our probe rockets to deliver an EMP right to those spots. Exactly, Ju-woo nodded. It won't destroy them, but it will blind them temporarily. Long enough to evacuate the colonists, asked Commander Seo. No, Tae-hyun said, his tactical mind already working through scenarios, but maybe long enough to make them think twice about staying. Over the next hour, Tae-hyun and Ju-woo began collaborating intensely, his human tactical thinking complementing her advanced Ceridian knowledge. They moved seamlessly together, finishing each other's thoughts in a way that made his officers exchange surprised glances. If we use the colony's atmospheric processors to release these particulates, Tae-hyun suggested, pointing to a chemical formula Ju-woo had provided, we could disrupt their ground forces' communication. Yes, and if we time it with the EMP attack on their ships, Ju-woo added, they'll be completely coordinated for approximately 12 minutes. Long enough for a small strike team to disable their ground transports, Tae-hyun concluded. Commander Seo watched them with raised eyebrows. You two work together like you've been training for years. Tae-hyun and Ju-woo exchanged a brief look. We understand each other, Tae-hyun said simply. Their unique understanding of each other's cultures proved invaluable as they developed defensive strategies. Ju-woo knew the Nexus weaknesses from centuries of Ceridian research, while Tae-hyun contributed the bold, unconventional thinking that humans were known for throughout the galaxy. As they finalized their plan, Tae-hyun found himself alone with Ju-woo for a moment while the others prepared their assignments. This reminds me of when we planned that neighborhood capture the flag game, he said quietly. You always had the best strategies. Ju-woo's skin rippled with warm golden tones, amusement he was learning to recognize. I remember, you always wanted to charge straight ahead, and I had to teach you about flanking maneuvers. Using Mrs. Peterson's garden as cover was brilliant. Until her sprinklers turned on, Ju-woo laughed, a melodic sound. The moment of levity faded as they both turned back to the tactical display, showing the colony and the Nexus ships. There's something you're not telling me about these Nexus, Tae-hyun said. I can see it in your colors. Ju-woo's skin immediately stilled, becoming almost monochrome. You're learning to read me well. I always could, even when you look human. What aren't you saying? She hesitated, then spoke in a lower voice. The Nexus aren't just here for resources. They're scouting. The ships you see are just the vanguard of a much larger force. If they determine this sector is vulnerable, they'll bring their main fleet, Tae-hyun finished, the weight of her words sinking in. Yes, and Earth, being the newest spacefaring civilization in this region, with colonies spread thin and minimal defenses. She didn't need to complete the thought. Tae-hyun straightened his shoulders. Then we make sure they leave with a very different impression. We show them that humanity isn't easy prey, and that humanity has friends. Ju added, her hand briefly touching his arm. Her skin glowed with a determined blue light. As his officers filed back into the room for the final briefing, Tae-hyun realized that this crisis might be just the beginning of a much larger conflict. But strangely, standing beside his childhood friend, alien though she might be, he felt more confident than he had any right to be. The Nexus had no idea what they were about to face, The combined ingenuity of human boldness and Ceridian wisdom, bound together by a friendship that had begun decades ago on a summer day in Nebraska. The plan to defend Proxima Colony had worked better than expected. The electromagnetic pulse had temporarily blinded the Nexus ships, giving Tadion's strike team just enough time to disable their ground transports. When Earth's reinforcements arrived, the Nexus withdrew rather than engage in a fair fight. But everyone knew they would return with greater numbers. 2 weeks later, the situation had escalated dramatically. The Nexus had attacked 3 more human colonies and destroyed a Ceridian research outpost. Now, representatives from Earth and Ceridia gathered on the neutral space station Artemis to share intelligence and develop a more permanent solution. Taehyun sat in the main conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the patterns of Nexus attacks. Ju stood beside him, her skin cycling through thoughtful shades of blue and purple as she studied the data. "They're getting bolder," Admiral Lee noted, pointing to the latest attack coordinates. "And their fleet is growing. We counted 12 warships at the Tav City engagement. My government believes they're building toward a major offensive," added Councillor Hannah, the lead Ceridian representative. "Their attack pattern is consistent with historical records from their last emergence cycle." Taehyun rubbed his tired eyes. For days, they had analyzed Nexus technology, searching for a weakness they could exploit. So far, they had found nothing that would work against such a large force. "We keep focusing on their weapons and shields," he said, frustrated. "But maybe we're looking at the wrong thing." "What do you mean?" Admiral Lee asked. "In every engagement, their coordination has been perfect. Multiple ships acting as one, adapting instantly to our tactics." Taehyun pulled up footage from recent battles. "Look here and here. No communication lag. No tactical confusion. It's like they share one mind." Juwoo moved closer to the display, her eyes widening. "You're right. That level of coordination isn't normal, even for advanced species." Taehyun began typing rapidly, pulling up sensor readings from various encounters. "Our standard communications analysis wouldn't show it, but what if?" He reconfigured the data, focusing on quantum-level readings that most systems filtered out as background noise. A pattern emerged, subtle but unmistakable. "Their communication uses quantum entanglement," Taehyun realized, studying the data pattern with growing excitement, "which can be disrupted by phase-shifted resonance." Juwoo completed his thought, just like when they would finish each other's sentences as children. They looked at each other, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. "Explain," demanded Admiral Lee, looking between them. Taehyun stood up. "Quantum entanglement allows instantaneous communication across any distance. It's why they can coordinate so perfectly. Their ships and soldiers are all connected through quantum channels." Juwoo's skin brightened with excitement. Standard jamming wouldn't work against quantum communications, but a phase-shifted resonance field could disrupt the entanglement itself. "Is that even possible?" asked one of the Earth scientists. "Theoretically," Juwoo replied. "Ceridian scientists developed the concept, but we never built a working prototype." "Because you lacked sufficient power sources," Taehyun guessed. Juwoo nodded. "The energy requirements were beyond our capabilities." Taehyun turned to Admiral Lee. "But Earth's new fusion reactors might be powerful enough. If we combine Ceridian resonance theory with Earth's energy technology, we could create a weapon that wouldn't destroy their ships, but would make it impossible for them to fight effectively." Juwoo finished. The room buzzed with cautious hope as the two explained their idea in greater detail. Within hours, teams of human and Ceridian engineers were working together to design what they called the Quantum Disruption Array. 5 days later, as sensor networks detected a massive Nexus fleet assembling at the edge of human space, Taehyun and Juwoo stood in the Guardian's engine room, watching as technicians installed the prototype device. "Will it work?" Taehyun asked quietly. Juwoo's skin rippled with uncertainty. "The simulations look promising, but this is far beyond anything either of our species has built before. Like so many things lately, he replied with a small smile. She turned to face him directly. Taehyun, if this doesn't work. It will, he interrupted. It has to. The Nexus fleet arrived with overwhelming force. 27 warships against the combined Earth-Ceridian defense force of just 14 vessels. The battle began immediately, with Nexus ships moving in perfect coordination, their superior weapons tearing through the outer defense line. On the Guardian's bridge, Taehyun watched grimly as 2 Earth cruisers were destroyed in the opening minutes. Disruption array status, he demanded. Power levels at 87% and rising, sir, reported his engineer. We need 95 for activation. The Ceridian vessels are taking heavy fire on the port flank, warned Commander Co. They can't hold position much longer. Taehyun opened a channel to the Ceridian flagship. Juwoo, we need 3 more minutes to power up the array. Her image appeared on screen, her command center filled with flashing lights and urgent activity. We'll give you 5, she promised, though her skin had darkened to a determined gray. Taehyun watched as the Ceridian ships executed a daring maneuver, drawing Nexus fire away from the Guardian and the other Earth vessels carrying disruption devices. Array at 93%, called the engineer. 94, 95. Ready to activate. All defending ships. This is Commander Kim. Taehyun broadcast. Prepare for disruption array activation. Switch to backup communications immediately. A chorus of acknowledgments came through as Allied ships switched to hardwired communication systems that wouldn't be affected by the quantum disruption. Activate arrays now, Taehyun ordered. The Guardian shuddered as massive amounts of energy poured into the device. Around them, other Earth ships did the same, while Ceridian vessels provided cover. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Nexus continued their perfect, coordinated attack patterns. Then, chaos erupted across the enemy fleet. Nexus ships suddenly stopped firing. Some began moving erratically, nearly colliding with each other. Others fired weapons in seemingly random directions. The perfect coordination that made them so deadly had vanished in an instant. It's working, shouted Commander Co. They've lost their hive mind connection. In the decisive battle that followed, Earth ships led by Taehyun deployed the disruptors at maximum strength, while Ceridian vessels provided cover and targeted disabled Nexus ships. The Nexus fleet, suddenly unable to coordinate, fell into disarray and began to retreat, each ship acting independently and often at cross purposes to the others. They're running, someone said in disbelief as the Nexus ships jumped away in a disorganized manner, some even colliding with each other in their haste to escape. Cheers erupted across the bridge. Taehyun allowed himself a moment of relief before opening a channel to the Ceridian flagship. Juwoo appeared on screen, her ship damaged but intact. Her skin glowed with victorious gold and blue patterns. We did it, she said, her voice filled with wonder. A Ceridian theory and human technology, working together. Just like us, Taehyun replied with a smile. As the Allied fleet regrouped and began rescue operations, Taehyun knew this victory was more than a tactical success. It represented something profound, the beginning of a true partnership between their species, born from a childhood friendship that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. The Grand Hall of the United Earth Government headquarters in New Geneva sparkled with lights and decorations. Delegates from a dozen worlds mingled together, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. At the center of attention stood 2 figures. Commander Taehyun Kim in his formal Earth Defense Fleet uniform and Ambassador Juwoo, her skin shimmering with celebratory patterns of gold and blue. 3 months had passed since the decisive battle against the Nexus. The quantum disruption technology had been rapidly deployed throughout human and Ceridian space, creating a defensive network that had successfully repelled 2 more Nexus incursions. Intelligence reports suggested the Nexus had withdrawn from the sector entirely, seeking easier prey elsewhere in the galaxy. Distinguished representatives, began Secretary General Murai, her voice carrying across the hushed room. Today marks a historic moment. For the first time since humanity reached the stars, we formalize a true alliance with another civilization. Taehyun stood at attention, his posture perfect, but his mind racing with the enormity of the moment. Beside him, Juwoo's colors rippled with barely contained emotion. The Earth-Ceridia alliance stands as testament to what cooperation can achieve, continued the Secretary General. Together, our civilizations have defeated a threat that neither could have overcome alone. As the formal signing ceremony proceeded, Taehyun found himself reflecting on the strange path that had led to this moment. A childhood friendship with a girl who turned out to be an alien observer, a chance reunion at a diplomatic reception, a crisis that forced them to work together. And now, a formal alliance that would reshape the political landscape of this sector of the galaxy. After the ceremony, as dignitaries celebrated with food and drink from both worlds, Taehyun found himself surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. Everyone wanted to hear firsthand about the battle against the Nexus. He answered politely, but kept looking for Juwoo across the crowded room. He finally spotted her on a balcony overlooking the gardens, standing alone under the night sky. He made his way to her, nodding politely to those who tried to engage him in conversation. "Escaping your admirers?" he asked as he joined her. Juwoo's skin rippled with amusement. "I could ask you the same. You're quite the hero now." "We both are," he corrected. "Though I notice most humans still find it difficult to approach you. They're not used to us yet," she said, looking out at the stars. "That will change with time." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "I've been granted leave," Taehyun said finally, 2 weeks before my next assignment. I was thinking of visiting Nebraska." Juwoo turned to him, her colors shifting to a curious purple. "Your childhood home." He nodded. "It's still there. My parents moved to the Mars colony years ago, but they kept the house. I thought you might like to see it again." 2 days later, they stood together on the porch of a modest 2-story house on the outskirts of a small Nebraska town. The property was well maintained but clearly uninhabited, the automated systems keeping everything in order until the owners returned. "It's smaller than I remember," Juwoo said as they walked through the front door. Her voice held wonder at seeing a place she had last visited in disguised form decades ago. "We were smaller," Taehyun replied with a smile. They spent the day exploring old haunts, the creek where they had caught frogs, the hill where they had watched stars, the remains of a tree fort they had built together. Juwoo moved through these spaces with a strange mix of familiarity and discovery, experiencing them now with her true Ceridian senses. As evening approached, they sat on the back porch, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. The Nebraska sky painted itself in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Earth sunsets are unique in the galaxy," Juwoo said softly. "We have nothing like them on Ceridia." "Yet you chose to come back here," Taehyun observed, "even after you were punished for becoming friends with me." Her skin rippled with deep blues. "I volunteered for Earth assignment as soon as I could. I studied your language patterns, your cultural developments, your scientific advances." She turned to face him fully. "You know, I never stopped thinking about you," Juwoo admitted as they watched the sunset deepen across the Nebraska plains. The confession hung in the air between them, weightier than it might seem. "Neither did I," Taehyun replied after a moment. "Even when I thought you were human." Juwoo's skin flushed with warm, surprised colors. "Really? You were the most interesting person I'd ever met," he said simply. "No one else challenged me the way you did. Made me think about the universe differently." He shook his head with a small laugh. "I used to make up stories about where you might have gone. I never imagined the truth would be more fantastic than anything I could invent. And now here we are," she said, her colors shifting to a content blue. "Representatives of a historic alliance." "Is that all we are?" Taehyun asked quietly. Juwoo's colors fluttered with unexpected patterns. "What do you mean?" "Two species who never expected to meet, brought together by circumstance," he said. "But we're more than that, aren't we? Our connection is personal, not just political." "Yes," she admitted, her skin glowing softly in the fading light. "Though I'm not sure what to call it. There isn't really a precedent for whatever this is between us." Taehyun smiled. "There wasn't a precedent for a human-Ceridian alliance either, until we created one." As night fell, they sat together watching stars appear one by one. The same stars they had gazed at as children, but with entirely new understanding. In the weeks and months that followed, their stories spread throughout the galaxy. How a friendship between a human boy and a disguised alien girl had blossomed into an alliance that saved two civilizations and changed humanity's place among the stars forever. It became something of a legend, repeated in schools and diplomatic academies across dozens of worlds. Other species, long hesitant to form meaningful relationships with the newcomer humans, began to reconsider their stance. If the reclusive Ceridians had found value in human partnership, perhaps there was more to this young species than met the eye. For Taehyun and Juwoo, however, the grand political implications were secondary to the personal journey they had begun. As official representatives of the alliance, they traveled between worlds, working together to build understanding and cooperation. Their unique perspective, each having glimpsed the other's world through the lens of friendship, made them particularly effective diplomats. And sometimes, between official duties, they would find quiet moments to simply be together, neither fully human nor fully Ceridian, but something new and unnamed, a bridge between worlds that had once seemed impossibly distant. "Do you think," Juwoo asked him once as they stood on the observation deck of a starship bound for a diplomatic conference, "that there are others like us out there? Other friendships across species that could change the galaxy?" Taehyun considered the vast field of stars before them. "If there aren't yet," he said with certainty, "there will be."